the two previous lectures, we have covered the following. What is Aqeedah and the areas that Aqeedah covers. Just to remind yourselves, the word Aqeedah comes from the word Aqada, which means to tie or bind something, and ultimately refers to the doctrines and beliefs that each and every individual believer is tied to. The areas that it covers, we said there are three areas: Al-Ilahiyat, Al-Nubuwat, Al-Sam'iyat. Al-Ilahiyat, remember, are those beliefs relating to Allah Almighty Jalla wa'ala, His Sifat, His Asma', His That, so on and so forth. An-Nubuwat are those beliefs relating to Allah's beloved messengers and prophets, which inshallah Azza wa Jal we will do next month. The fourth article of faith, wa rusulihi. And as-sam'iyat are those beliefs which we have heard about through Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, either by way of the Quran or by way of ahadith mubarakah, prophetic narrations of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We also discussed why Aqeedah is important, and we set the premise for the discussion by saying that our deeds and actions will only be accepted when we have the right beliefs. So if our beliefs are not right, they are corrupt, or there is some sort of shak or shubat, some sort of doubt in our beliefs, then our deeds and actions will not be accepted by Allah Almighty. This was my da'wah, and we presented, remember at the time, 6 or 7 dala'il from the Quran and from the prophetic narrations of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam supporting the claim and da'wah. And all of these things are in your notes. If you weren't here for the first lecture and you would like a set of the notes, then you need to see Brother Muhammad before you leave. Similarly, if you weren't here last month and you need a set of notes, again the person to see is Brother Muhammad, and we've just had an hour out of him. But we also looked at the sources of Aqeedah. Where do we take our Aqeedah from? And primarily our beliefs, our aqaid are taken from the verses of the Quran and the prophetic traditions, ahadith mubarakah of Rasul Akram sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. And the secondary source for our aqaid Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'at, is the ijma', the consensus of the ulama. And remember we said ijma' is of three types: ijma' sahaba, ijma' a'imma, and ijma' ummah. Consensus of the companions, consensus of the scholars, and consensus of the Muslim ummah. So we take our source, or should I say, the sources for our aqeedah are predominantly the Quran and verses of the Quran, ahadith mubarakah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the ijma' of those three things that I've just mentioned. And we said the task of formulating the aqaid of the Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'at fell upon the shoulders of the ulama. The responsibility was that of the scholars. Khas tor, we mentioned the names of 7 great scholars. 4 of them, no doubt, were scholars of fiqh, but they're also scholars of aqeedah as well. And then 3 of them, more specifically, they are scholars of aqa'id. So you have specialists in different fields. So just to go through these names, Usul Barakat ke liye, and again, all of these things are in your notes. Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh, Imam Muhammad bin Idris al-Shafi'i rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh, Imam Malik bin Anas rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh, or Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh. These are your 4 Imams of fiqh, who are also the 4 Imams of aqa'id as well. इसी तरीके से we have the 3 Imams of Aqidah, and 2 of them responsible for formulating the schools of Aqa'id. So we have Imam Abu Hassan al-Ashari, Imam Abu Mansur al-Mawtaridi, and Imam Abu Ja'far al-Tahawi al-Hanafi rahmatullah. Yes? So these 7 great Imams of their time, आपके दौर ज़माने के अइम्मा, they were responsible for formulating the aqaid of the Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'at and the aqaid of the Muslims per se. So Aqidah isn't something based upon our whims and desires. Aqidah isn't something based upon the say-so of an individual without any premise or basis from Quran and Sunnah. Rather, our Aqidah comes directly from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the Khulafai Rashideen, the Sahaba Ikram, the Tabi'een and the Atba'i Tabi'een. And there is a full historical development of Aqidah as well, which we're not going to go into at this point in time. But again, the notes you'll find in the set of notes from the first lecture. So all of this was from the lecture we had on New Year's Eve. If I'm not mistaken, the first lecture was on New Year's Eve. And all of this we have covered, and we have just very briefly touched upon and revised in the last 8 or 9 minutes. Last month we started the discussions relating to our beliefs regarding Allah Almighty Jalla wa'ala. The first article of Iman, Amantu Billah. And remember, the 7 articles of Iman we take from Iman Mufassal. Amantu Billahi wa malaikatihi wa kutubihi wa rusulihi wal yawmil akhiri wal qadri khayrihi wa sharrihi min Allah ta'ala wal ba'thi ba'dal maut. Last month we predominantly looked at the first article of faith, which is belief in Allah. And we began by discussing what is Tawhid, and Tawhid in light of Quran, and the aqaliyya, logical proofs and examples, and the importance of Tawhid as well. Remember? Then we began looking at the sifat of Allah Almighty, the attributes of Allah. Sifat khasa, specific attributes of Allah Almighty, such as al-qidamu, al-baqa, al-wahdaniyya, al-mukhalifatu lil-hawadithi, so on and so forth. And then at the end of last month's lecture, we touched upon those attributes which cannot be associated to Allah Almighty. Just backtracking slightly, Sifatullah, remember we said either they are essential attributes or they are active attributes. Remember that text of Al-Fiqh al-Akbar that we looked at, Imam Azam's understanding and giving us the understanding of the attributes and sifat of Allah Almighty Jalla wa'ala. And again, all of these things are in your notes from last month's lecture. And we are still going through last month's lecture. So rather than doing adwa today, we are starting with qaza. So we are making up. So today, inshallah azza wa jal, what we're going to cover, inshallah, is the discussion regarding does Allah Almighty have hands, and tackling the beliefs of the literalists. And we will have the discussion regarding shirk and trying to understand what is shirk. And within this, we will discuss also the permissibility of saying Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Then this month's lecture is on the second article of faith, belief in the angels, the malaika. And you don't need the notes which have already been given out just yet. We'll come to them notes around 7:15, inshallah. And then also the aim is today to cover the third article of faith, belief in the divine scriptures. So not a lot to go through. Is everyone clear on that? What we've already covered and what we aim to cover today, inshallah azza wa jal. So to begin with the discussion in relation to does Allah Almighty have hands? Have you got last month's? Those of you who have got last month's notes, you need to turn to page 7, please. Those of you who don't have last month's notes, I would advise you sit next to somebody who does have last month's notes, so you can at least look at what the notes say. The PowerPoint also gives you something to look at as well, and you've also got my not so melodious voice to do your ears in. Okay? I just wanted a page. The cameraman's having a bit of a tricky job because I just seem to be moving around. I think last month's lecture went on YouTube, and one or two people gave me some feedback. They said, Imam, you need to sit in one place. What's your name, brother?
Hassan.
Hassan Bhai. Hassan Bhai last month was holding the camera, so I felt even more sorry for him. This month I think he's clocked on. It'll be easier to bring the tripod or stand or whatever you call it, huh? Baran. Coming to the discussion. Does Allah Almighty have hands? Question mark. So one of the fundamental beliefs we hold in relation to Allah Almighty is that Allah Almighty does not resemble, He does not resemble any of His creation. Allah Almighty does not resemble any of His creation. In essence, that, in attributes, sifat, or in actions, af'al. In no shape, way or form does Allah Almighty Jalla wa'ala resemble His creation. And this first point we need to have firm in our minds. So following on from where we left off last month, it is impossible to ascribe and associate human-like qualities, or in this case faults and blemishes, to Allah Almighty who is pure. Our mistakes, our faults, the blemishes that humans have in their nature, you cannot ascribe such things to Allah Almighty. And we touched upon this last month when we said that there is a group of individuals who their scholars mention and wrote that Allah Almighty has the ability to lie, but He chooses not to lie. That option of lying and imkanul kadhib or imkanul kidh, that option is there. even though he doesn't exercise that option. And that's something we do not entertain. And basic objections, or should I say basic answers to that objection, we went through last month. So we're following on from where we left off. So one of the fundamental beliefs of aqaid and the essential points that we hold in relation to Allah Almighty is that He does not resemble any one of His creation in essence, attributes or actions. However, in the Quran there are several verses which seem to suggest that He does share some similar attributes with His creation. Like, for example, we have the verse from Surah Al-Fatih, Surah number 48, verse number 10, where Allah Almighty Jalla wa Ala says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُبَايِعُونَكَ إِنَّمَا يُبَايِعُونَ اللَّهِ يَدُ اللَّهِ فَوْقَ أَيْدِيهِمْ. This is in relation to Bayt al-Ridwan, the pledge of allegiance that the Sahaba Ikram made under the tree of Ridwan during the 6th year after Hijrah. Treaty of Hudaybiyah and Bayt al-Ridwan, all of these things linked. Around 1400 Sahaba Ikram wanted to perform the Umrah, left Madinatul Munawwara in the state of Ihram, got to a place called Hudaybiyah, around 20-25 kilometers outside the vicinity of the Haram. Al-Batta is outside the Hudud Haram. This Najiz has been many times, alhamdulillah, with the Sadat Karam. We go every Easter with them, and we've been to do ziyarat of Maqam Hudaybiyah. And it was at this place where Nabi Islam performed many great mu'jizat and miracles, like the famous miracle of Rasul Akram sallallahu alayhi wasallam quenching the thirst of the Sahaba. How? By placing his blessed fingers inside a bowl and water gushing out from his fingers. And he was able to quench the thirst of 1400 Sahaba Ikram and the animals, and with that water they were able to perform the wudu as well. But the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, negotiations took place between Huzur Jane Jana Rasul Akram sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and the Mushrikeen in Makkah. And it was at this point Nabi Islam sent Sayyidina Uthman to Makkah al-Mukarramah. Yes? Sayyidina Uthman Ghani. And the Quraysh in Makkah they said to Sayyidina Uthman Ghani that, "Oh Uthman, you are one of our own. We give you the opportunity to perform the Umrah and do Tawaf al-Ka'bah al-Sharifah." And that's when Sayyidina Uthman made the statement, which is a statement of Ishq and Muhabbat Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Adab Rasul, and said, Uska mafhum, that how can I do something that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam hasn't done yet? How can I do something or precede the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam when he sallallahu alayhi wa sallam hasn't done it yet? But rumors began to circulate that the Quraysh in Makkah have assassinated Sayyidina Uthman. These rumors came back to Nabi Islam and the Sahaba. And some of the Sahaba suggested that they should fight against the Mushrikeen in Makkah. So Nabi Islam wanted allegiance from the Sahaba, and he begged. And one by one the Sahaba came, 1400 or so of them in number, and they placed their hand in the hand of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah Almighty mentions all of this in the Quran. This is that verse. Surah number 48, verse number 10. And just before we come to the verse, Nabi Islam knew Sayyidina Uthman was alive. And one of the indications of this was what? The Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam took their hand, la tashbih wa tamthil. They took their hand and said that this hand represents the hand of Uthman, and I placed the hand of Uthman in my hand. I placed the hand of Uthman in my hand, which was a clear indication that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam knew that Sayyidina Uthman was alive, even though he was around 20-25 kilometers away from Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But Allah Almighty mentions all of this in the Quran. The translation of it you have in your notes. Inna alladhina yubayi'unaka innama yubayi'una Allah. That indeed those who pledge their allegiance to you, in reality they were pledging their allegiance to Allah Almighty. Sahaba who came and pledged their allegiance to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, in reality they were pledging their allegiance to who? To Allah Almighty. Ajkal youngsters ask this question, should we do bad? Should we pledge our allegiance to someone? And the answer in a nutshell is yes, you should. Imam Ghazali says that individual who does not have a murshid-e-kamil, pir-e-kamil, then shaitan is his guide. The job of a murshid, a pir is what? To guide you, to cleanse you of your spiritual illnesses and diseases, to clean your heart, to cleanse your soul. A true murshid-e-kamil or pir-e-kamil. Not these fraudsters and charlatans we see, who have made a business out of the whole thing. And there are shara'it, there are conditions that a pir-e-kamil must meet. Very quickly, this is part of the discussion. Ala Hazrat mentions 4 conditions for a pir-e-kamil. How many? Write them down. 4 conditions for a pir-e-kamil, murshid-e-kamil. Condition number 1 is that person should be a Muslim and he should have Sahihul Aqidah. Yani a Murtad cannot be a pir-e-kamil. Or a Ghair Sunni whose Aqidah is not Sahih, that person cannot be a pir-e-kamil. So the first condition, Shart-e Awwal of a pir-e-kamil, Murshid-e-kamil, is that person must be a Muslim and he must have the correct beliefs. Yani Sahihul Aqidah. Ala Hazrat's conditions. Number 2 is that that person must be an alim-e-deen, a scholar of the deen. Or kam as kam minimum, that person should have knowledge of what is halal and haram, haqq and batil, right and wrong. Second condition Ala Hazrat mentioned. And we can do wazahat upon each condition, and in many of my lectures and talks on YouTube, which all seem to be against dodgy peas anyway, you can find these wazahat, any expansions on the discussions and conditions. Number 3, I just realized why there's slightly less attendance today. The Carabao Cup, my phone gives me notifications. For those of you who are looking at your phones, I know who you are, I can see you. Man City won the final. So if there was any doubt, that doubt has now been removed. We're getting back to the reality. Condition number 3 is that Murshid-e-Kamil, Pir-e-Kamil should be ba'amal upon the Sharia, Quran and Sunnah. So if a Pir Sahib, before this gets edited afterwards, if a Pir claims that he is sat in a particular place and he is offering his prayers in Makkatul Mukarramah and Madinatul Munawwara, then that Pir is a batil Pir. He is not righteous, and do not place your hand in his hand. If that Pir is advising you to keep the Sunnah, but he himself falls short of the requirements, or he makes such claims, our beard short in order to attract the youth towards Islam, then that person is not a pir-e-kamil. And people might argue, oh, he has hundreds and thousands, if not millions of followers and murideen and likes on Facebook. If that is the condition and miqdar of identifying whether somebody is right or wrong, then the same argument can be placed upon those Hindus who go and worship monkeys and idols in temple. Or the followers that Shaitan himself has. Since when has Islam ever been measured upon quantity? Islam does not measure you and me on quantity. Islam measures you and me upon quality. Look at the Battle of Badr. 305 Sahaba on one side, 1,000 mushrikeen come pesh on the other side. But still, وَلَقَدْ نَصَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ بِبَدْرٍ وَأَنْتُمْ أَذِلَّةٌ. The help of Allah Almighty came down on the day of Badr, and Allah Almighty granted the believers, the Muslims, victory against the disbelievers. Less in number, 3-to-1 ratio. But because they had Iman in their hearts, Dawlat al-Iman, Ishq wa Mahabbat al-Adab Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, they were granted victory and fatah by Allah Almighty. So Islam does not judge us by quantity, Islam judges us by quality. But and the fourth condition of a Pir Kamil is that that individual, that Pir should have a continuous chain of shuyukh going back to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His hand in the hand of his shaykh, in the hand of his shaykh, in the hand of his shaykh, all the way back to Siddiq Akbar, Mawlai Kainat, radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, and then ultimately back to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That Pir who has these four conditions, that Pir is Pir Kamil. Put your hand in that person's hand. And the only reason I expanded upon this is we have youngsters sat here. This is a common question. Should we do bad? The question, should we do bad? The answer no doubt is yes, you should. But on these conditions, if you find somebody who meets Metana is Doraj, anyone who even meets one of these conditions, put your hand in his hand and save yourself from the fitna of society. But coming to the discussion, Yadullahi fawqa aydihim. Yes. Allah Almighty says, indeed, those who placed their hands in your hand, Ya Rasulullah, in reality they placed their hands in the hand, they made their allegiance to Allah Almighty. Those who pledged it, yubayi'unaka. Those who made their pledge of allegiance and oath of allegiance to you, Ya Rasulullah, in reality they were making their oath of allegiance to Allah. Yadullahi fawqa aydihim. Iska sada tarjama, the hand of Allah is above their hands. Yadun, in the Arabic language, there is no other way of understanding it, is the term used for hands. So the hand of Allah, fawqa aydihim. Aydun being the plural here. Fawqa aydihim. That the hand of Allah is above their hands. Do you understand here? So Bator Zahir, on the apparent here, it seems to suggest, if you look at the word and the verse literally, then it does seem to suggest that Allah has a hand. And those who are literalists go a step further by saying Allah's hand is like our hand. And then we have a verse in the Quran where Allah Almighty, and this verse we touched upon anyway, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ كُلُّ مَنْ عَلَيْهَا فَانٍ وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ ذُو الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. And everything will perish. When the angel Israfil will blow the trumpet, everything will perish. And the only thing that will remain will be the face of Allah Almighty. Wajhun is the Arabic term used for face. This is in Surah Ar-Rahman, Surah number 51, verses 26 and 27 more specifically. So here in the Quran it seems to suggest that Allah Ta'ala has a face. And those who go a step further, they say Allah has a face like we have a face. Ma'adallah. وَيَبْقَى, the only thing that will, وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ, the face of your Lord, ذُو الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ, the possessor of majesty, jalal, and ikram, generosity. Yes? Isi tariqe se, this is a common one. And the Salafiyya and the literalists will make this the premise of the whole theology, that Allah Almighty sits on the throne. In the 13th chapter of the Quran, Surah number 13, verse number 2. Yani Surah Al-Ra'd, verse number 2. الله الذي رفع السماوات بغير عمد ترونها ثم استوى على العرش. And uska tarjuma is in your notes. That Allah is He who raised the heavens without any pillars. And after raising the heavens without any pillars, ثم استوى على العرش, He sat on the throne. Istiwa. وسخر الشمس والقمر, and so on and so forth. So the literalist here will say that Allah sits on the throne and is above the seventh heaven. Even though basic aqaid teaches you and me what? That Allah Almighty is pure and free from zamaniyat and makaniyat. Allah Almighty is free and pure from place and time. Why? Because place and time is makhluk, is a creation. And Khaliq, the creator, is not bound by the same factors that the creation is bound by. You and me, we are bound by time, space, location, particular area. But Allah Almighty is free from all of these things. Do we understand? This is in a basic sense, and more detailed discussion will come. But these verses and other verses like these, where interpretation becomes difficult, the Mufassirin have said that these verses to start with are known as mutashabihat ayat. Yani verses where interpretation becomes difficult. Verses where interpretation becomes difficult. So first key point here, if you've got the notes, underline it. That these verses, where Bator Zahir on the apparent, it seems to suggest that Allah has human-like attributes. These verses are known by the ulama as what? Mutashabihat. Yes? Mutashabihat ayat. Yani verses which are very difficult to interpret. However, saying this, there are three positions which have developed over time in relation to these verses from the Quran. How many positions? Three. First position is the position of the minority. Second position is the position of the Sahaba and the majority. And the third position is the position of Ibn Taymiyyah and his followers. So in a nutshell, these are the three positions. One by one we'll go through them. Okay? So position number one, which is the position of the minority. And if I'm not mistaken, this will be now on page 8. Yes? Still on 7? Bottom of page 7 from last month's notes. So position 1, which is a position of the minority. Some scholars believe that those who have sufficient knowledge on the matter permitted, or those who have sufficient knowledge in relation to these verses, they are permitted to interpret such verses. So we're talking not your average masjid ka imam, churlu murlu molvi. We're talking scholars of the highest level, people like Huzur Ghaus-e A'zam, Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, Piran Pir, Darastu ilma hatta sirtu qutban, who reached his maqam qutbiyyah because of knowledge, ilm. Scholars of his caliber, his stature, were saying if we allow this position to take dominance, it would be scholars of that caliber, that level. The likes of Imam Fakhruddin Razi, Hujjatul Islam, Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, and others like that, similar stature. Imam Ahl-Sunnat, Imam Ahmad Riza Khan. Yes? But some scholars believe that those who have sufficient knowledge on the matter are permitted to interpret such verses and explain them in a manner befitting to Allah Almighty's status. So for example, Allah's hand can be majazi tor, metaphorically interpreted as His qudra, His power or care. Do you understand? Like this, the sitting on the throne, istiwa, thumma stawa ala al-arsh, this can be again metaphorically interpreted as Allah Almighty taking ownership of the throne. So this opinion, this first position is the middle ground. Positions 2 and 3 are either side of the spectrum. So this position would be the middle ground, that these verses you can interpret, provided you have the necessary knowledge, and this is how you could possibly interpret them. Okay? Like I said, this is the minority position. Minority. Okay? We go with position number 2, which is the position of the majority. And the correct position of the Sahaba, that according to the majority of the noble companions and the Salaf al-Salihin, the pious predecessors, such verses, ayat mutashabihat, can only truly be interpreted by Allah Almighty. We are not required to do ta'wil or to interpret or to look for some sort of understanding of them verses. Rather, we are simply required to believe in those verses. Remember, golden rule is what? To reject any one verse of the Quran takes you outside the folds of Islam. So we're not rejecting these verses, we believe in them. We have iman in these verses. Yadullahi fawqa aydihim. We have iman in those verses. ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى عَلَى الْعَرْشِ وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ. We have iman in all of these verses, but we don't interpret them because we don't have that understanding. So we say that the verses describing his hands and face are all truthful, but the exact form of it is beyond our comprehension and understanding. And this makes sense. Again, if you were to allow the argument to flourish for a moment, to suggest that Allah Ta'ala sits on the throne and restrict him to the throne, when, and this is how they would understand it, when you and me, I'm sat now, have the ability to move, go wherever we need to go, whatever it may be, such a thing is not possible for Allah Ta'ala in that sense. That Allah is restricted to a particular place or a particular time. Or that Allah Almighty has some sort of direction, going forward, back, right, left. Allah Almighty is pure from all of these things. This is why when somebody came and asked the great Imam Malik that what is our understanding in relation to Allah sitting on the throne? Us dor ke Imam, who passed away in the year 179 AH. They said that sitting, the istiwa, is not known by us. It is not known by us. Its exact form is not understandable. Faith in that verse and verses similar to it is compulsory. Asking about it is bid'ah and innovation. So this is Imam Malik's answer. And then he threw that person out of his majlis. We don't even entertain such discussions and arguments. Futile discussions to suggest again that Allah Almighty sits on the throne and is above the seventh heaven. This is something which we reject and we do not accept in light of the opinions of the Sahaba, the Salaf al-Salihin, the Ulama Haqqa. Our duty and responsibility is to believe in these verses, not to interpret it. This is the position of the majority and the correct position. Do we understand? So position 1 was what? Those who do have that sufficient level of knowledge, they can possibly interpret these verses. How that interpretation can happen, we'll mention. But the correct position is the position that we've just mentioned and talked about now, which is that our duty is to believe in these verses as they are a part of the Quran, but don't do ta'wil, don't interpret them. Don't interpret them. Okay? But there are those who went to the extreme of interpreting Ibn Taymiyyah is a name that no doubt you would have heard of, and if you haven't, you've definitely heard of today. Ibn Taymiyyah was considered Shaykh al-Islam by the adversaries, the opponents of the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'at. He and his followers have this very different understanding in relation to this discussion. I was going to say warped, but I'll refrain from being naughty. Some Muslims have deviated from the overwhelming consensus by trying to ascribe human-like attributes to Allah. In English they call this, and wait for it, anthropomorphism. I think it's in your notes, yes? Just don't check the spelling. Anthropomorphism. In Arabic they call it tashbih. What do they call it? Tashbih or tajseem. Attributing limbs and body parts and human-like attributes and qualities to Allah Almighty. So the first person to have done this was the Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, who passed away in the year 728 AH, even before the time of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, who was a staunch supporter of the ideology of Ibn Taymiyyah. And this isn't to cause firqawariyat or sectarianism and we're pointing fingers at them. These are hardcore facts which you cannot deny. These are not hidden things which are in a vault under the ground and you have to travel 10 years to get to the knowledge. No, these are things which are available through our fingertips. Knowledge, information which is available through our fingertips. So ye koi chhapi bhi gal nahi. Yes? So Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah gained notoriety amongst the scholars for alleged anthropomorphism, and he even spent time in prison in Cairo because of such heretic beliefs. He suggested that the divine names and attributes of Allah Almighty are to be taken at face value, yani in the literal sense. And one of his arguments you see in your notes is what? The fact that we raise our hands and make dua, this seems to suggest that Allah Almighty is above us. Not knowing what's mentioned in the notes, not knowing that the reason why we raise our hands is because from the heavens mercy and rahmat of Allah Almighty descends. Don't look at it one-dimensional. And then through his writings and teachings, the real fitna of the ummah emerged, khastor in relation to aqaid. So the reality is this, that there is no reason for Muslims to openly indulge in the exact form of Allah Almighty's hand or any of the above verses. Ye hamara maqsad hi nahi na? Sorry. Ye hamara maqsad hi nahi. Rather, and here within your notes, there is an example of Sayyiduna Ibrahim alayhi salam, Surah Al-Safat mein, Surah number 37, the Surah after Surah Yasin, verse number 99, when Ibrahim alayhi salam qala inni dhahibun ila rabbi sayahdeen, when Ibrahim alayhi salam said, I am going to my Lord. And does that mean that Ibrahim alayhi salam knew where his Lord was? No. So to take verses literally is a very dangerous thing. Like for example, there is a verse just come to my mind. Surah number 17, Surah Al-Isra, Bani Israel. If I remember the verse, Durood Sharif, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina wa Shafiyyina wa Mawlana Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But it'll come to me as I go through it now. So the danger of taking verses of the Quran literally or in light of what's happening nowadays, where certain youngsters take verses of the Quran out of context, without looking at the maqabal and the ma'ba'ad and the sabab nuzul or asbab nuzul, the reasons for revelation, and then just literally take verses as they are and try to justify their actions, suicide bombing and killing innocent people, and try to justify their actions through the verses of the Quran, at the same time giving Islam a bad name. This is something that we don't accept as well. So both things we do not accept. We do not accept. Okay? Taking verses literally and taking verses out of context. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina. So in short, there is no reason for Muslims to openly indulge in the exact form of Allah Almighty's hand or any of the above verses. And Ibn Ata'illah al-Saqandari was a contemporary of Ibn Taymiyyah. Al-Batta, he challenged Ibn Taymiyyah to a debate. Ibn Ata'illah al-Saqandari, who wrote the famous book Kitab al-Hikam, and where we took the name Al-Hikam Institute from that book, Kitab al-Hikam. But they were the Khalifa of Imam Sayyidina Abu Abbas al-Mursi, and Imam Sayyidina Abu Abbas al-Mursi was the Khalifa of Sayyidina Imam Hassan al-Shadili, the founder of the Shazili school of thought. So Batore Vasta, ek Vasta chorkar, they go back to Sayyidina Imam Hassan al-Shazili rahmatullah alayhi. Okay? Anyway, my mind is on this verse now. They say, what they say is on the board, that Allah Almighty will not ask you and me of the details of His nature and His attributes, yani on the day of Qiyamah. No doubt, knowing about them is important. But Allah Almighty will not ask about these things on the day of judgment. Rather, He will ask, how did we spend our time on the earth? Therefore, we should seek Allah where Allah seeks you. And you should seek Allah where Allah seeks you. Okay? At the bottom of page 8, what Imam At-Tahawi has written, that whoever does not guard against denying the attributes of Allah and against tashbih has no doubt erred and has failed to acquire understanding of the divine transcendence, yani tanzih. Top of page 9, for undoubtedly our Lord the Sublime and Exalted is described with the attributes of unity and uniqueness. No one in creation is in any way like Him. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ إِنَّهُ هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. Moreover, the Prophet ﷺ never asked and demanded that the believers think about Allah's existence and exact nature in great detail, and in fact pointed out that this could lead to misguidance and confusion. Such thoughts stem from the shaitan, يُوَسْوِسُ فِي صُدُورِ النَّاسِ. Sahih Muslim Sharif ki riwayat Sayyiduna Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he narrates that Rasul Akram sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that the shaitan, the devil, will come to you and ask and place this seed of discord and doubt into your mind, that who created this and who created that, until the very same shaitan will eventually ask, who created Allah? This is similar to what the Ya'juj and Ma'juj will do, during Isa al-Islam towards the end of times. And we do this in the 5th module. Full lecture last week at Muhaddis Azam Mission in Blackburn on the minor and major signs of the last hour, alhamdulillah. But Ya'juj, they will kill everyone on the earth. What will they say? Let's kill Allah now as well. So they begin to fire arrows into the sky. And when those arrows come back down again covered in blood, they will claim that we have killed Allah. Ye to wahi gal hai na? These are satanic whispers which develop in the mind of a person. And if you allow them to you entertain such whispers, and you allow these suspicions to develop in your mind, then no doubt this will lead to misguidance. This is why having this basic understanding and fundamental knowledge in relation to aqaid or zururiyat aqaid is absolutely paramount. Absolutely paramount. And once again, I acknowledge and applaud the efforts of the intizami of this masjid, or bil khusus Maulana Mohsin Sahib, who had this vision and had this intihab, so to speak, to make sure that such classes where basic aqaid are covered in the masjid, they are ultimately taking place. You cannot. So do not allow such arguments to develop. If such thoughts begin to occur in the mind, then seek refuge with Allah Almighty. A'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajeem. Remember, Allah Almighty has only entrusted us, middle of page 9, with those things that we can fathom and understand and comprehend. If something is beyond our limit and our understanding, like for example the ruh, the soul, then it is not an essential element of our faith to know about it, but it is but having belief in it is necessary. Perhaps this is why the Prophet ﷺ ordered people to contemplate upon Allah's creation. Do not contemplate upon Allah Himself. If you want to know about the Dhat of Allah Almighty, look at the makhluk, look at the creation of Allah. And the whole discussion is concluded when in the Quran Allah Almighty Himself says, Surah Al-A'raf, Surah number 7, verse number 180, verse number 180, where Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala Himself says in the Quran that, and for Allah are beautiful, وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا. Call Allah Almighty by these beautiful names. The very next verse, part of the same hissa, Lusajjus. وَذَرُوا الَّذِينَ يُلْحِدُونَ فِي أَسْمَائِهِ سَيُجْزَوْنَ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. And then Allah says in the same verse, Lusra hissa of that verse, Allah Almighty says, leave the company of those who utter improper speech against His names. They will be requited, yani they will pay for what they used to say and what they used to do. So this is an explicit order from Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, and an implicit indication that avoid such discussions about the exact nature of the Creator. What do we need to do? We need to mention and believe, or believe in Allah Almighty, mention His sifat, and talk about the mercy and rahmat of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, as Allah Almighty has mentioned it in the Quran, and as Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has highlighted in prophetic narrations. To conclude to all of this discussion, it is sufficient that Tawhid is known and understood through Surah Al-Ikhlas, and it is important to know that how are we instructed to understand the surah. This is through the means of Rasul Akram Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, not through our own intellect. The whole surah begins with Qul, or beloved you say. So if you want to understand Tawheed, you understand it through the means of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. ठीक है ना? That's 1 out of 4 done. And we've got 45 to 50 minutes. The reason why today's class was early is because I need to be in Oldham for 8:15. Okay? That's why we moved it back 1 hour. But next month, inshallah, last Sunday of the month, 25th of March. 25th of March. When do the clocks go forward? On that Sunday? Oh. So same time, 7 till 9? We'll WhatsApp you. We'll WhatsApp you. And even those who are watching the football at home, we'll WhatsApp them as well. Oh yeah, Ayat Labni. 2 Maulvis had a munazara once. One Sunni, one Ghair Sunni. And Ghair Sunni obviously literalist. So ye ayat, I'm having to read the full surah here. Hazrat will know. I'm not a hafiz, so I can only remember a few. Where Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala says, those who are blind in this dunya, they are blind in the akhirat as well. وَهُوَ أَعْمَى فِي الدُّنْيَا is three I can't remember. Surah Al-Isra mein hai. Anyway, we'll stop here. We'll come back. We'll have the discussion on understanding shirk. Do dua, I can do it within 15-20 minutes. I'm not too worried if we don't have the discussion on the permissibility of saying Ya Rasulullah. All that is in your notes. And then around 7:20, I want to move on to today's discussion. So with us pages. So whilst you're having your refreshments, I'll find the verse.
72.
We've got it. No refreshments. Stay where you are. Yes. وَمَنْ كَانَ فِي هَذِهِ أَعْمَى فَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ أَعْمَى وَأَضَلُّ سَبِيلًا. So two Maulvis had a munazara, and this is how Ustaz Sahab told us. One was Sunni, one was Ghair Sunni. And the premise of the debate, yani the bunyad, was on the verses of the Quran. So the Ghair Sunni said, I will prove my aqidah through the verses of the Quran. Sunni said, Theek hai. On this Ghair Sunni was blind. This Ghair Sunni was blind. And Nabina Maulvi. Theek hai na? So he goes, I'll prove my aqidah through the verses of the Quran. And like this discussion they were having on these mutashabihat verses. So Sunni Maulvi listen. And then he knew. So he took this verse here. وَمَنْ كَانَ فِي هَذِهِ أَعْمَى. Whosoever in this dunya a'ma is blind, فَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ أَعْمَى. That person in the akhirat is blind as well. The Maulvi Sahib uthe bas hui. Because he was blind. So this is my whole point is saying, some of you thinking he didn't drop it properly. My point wasn't to make you laugh. My point was to make the point. The point is to make the point. What's the point? Don't take verses literally. Okay? Here when Allah Almighty is talking about blindness, Pirani Peer is saying not the blindness of the eyes, physical eyes, rather the blindness of the eyes of the heart. This is about the tasawwuf and spirituality. So this is the danger of taking verses literally, or taking verses out of context and not contextualizing verses. So next time somebody wants to debate you on literalist verses, remember this one, Surah number 17, verse number 72. Help yourself to the refreshments, and inshallah we will reconvene in 5 minutes time. Page 9, guys. So we looked at the discussion regarding does Allah Almighty have hands. We've got one discussion left to have from last month, understanding shirk. And I kid you not, this is a 2-hour lecture in itself. I'm not going to keep you here for 2 hours, don't get scared. Those who are still having the refreshments, don't go towards the exit. But in a nutshell, very quickly, because this discussion is twofold. The first is regarding shirk and understanding and defining shirk, and the other is regarding the permissibility of saying Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Okay? So very quickly, shirk literally means to associate or to partner. And in Islam, it is to associate something or someone to Allah's inherent nature or to His attributes. So bottom of page 9, His Lordship, yani Rububiyyah, Uluhiyyat, even though it is a creation of Allah. And the one who commits shirk is known as a mushrik. Most commonly we have the mushrikeen in Makkah, the polytheists of Makkah, those who opposed and objected Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And ultimately a mushrik, there is only one place for him, unless he does tawbah, only one place for him, and that is the fires of Jahannam. But interestingly, the munafiq will be in a lower place in Jahannam than the mushrik. Munafiq is what? Hypocrite. So a hypocrite will be in a lower place in Jahannam than a mushrik. Top of page 10. Committing shirk is one of the greatest of sins. One of the greatest of sins. The other one that Allah Almighty will never forgive is what? Ghustakhi towards Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So anything connected and has a nisbat to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sahaba, Ahlul Bayt, and look no further than Surah Al-Lahab. Yes? So these are two khata, guna, sins that Allah will never forgive. Shirk, associating partners with Allah Almighty, doing sharik with Allah, and blasphemy, khustaqi, bi'adabi towards Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In light of Quran, these are the only two sins that Allah, even if you kill 100 people and you turn back to Allah Almighty with sincerity and you don't even do tawbah, Sahih Muslim Sharif ki riwayat, that man from Bani Israel who killed 99 people and then he killed 100. Yes, everyone's heard the narration. Even if you kill 100, don't do such a, but only have irada to do tawbah, even then Allah will forgive you. But shirk Allah will never forgive. And ghustakhi, blasphemy to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah Almighty will never forgive. And there is a verse here from the Quran, Surah An-Nisa, Surah number 4, verse number 48, where Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala highlights the severity of committing shirk. Verse 48, Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala Jalla wa Ala in the Quran says that إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَغْفِرُ أَن يُشْرَكَ بِهِ وَيَغْفِرُ مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ لِمَن يَشَاءُ وَمَن يُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدِ افْتَرَى إِثْمًا عَظِيمًا. Allah Almighty says, indeed Allah does not forgive association with Him, but He forgives what is less than that for whom He wills. And he who associates others with Allah has certainly fabricated a tremendous sin, committed a tremendous sin. So the severity of committing shirk is in the Quran. But we need to understand what is shirk, because the definition of shirk has been hijacked by some people today. And they label everything that we do as shirk, shirk. And if it's not shirk, there is the other word, starts with a B. It's not banana. Bid'ah. Shirk, shirk, bid'ah, bid'ah. That's it. These are the only two words in their vocabulary. Allah guide us all to the truth. So we need to understand and define what is shirk. And the definition isn't Maulana Mohsin Saab's definition, or my definition, or a definition taken from a book written in the 21st century. Rather, the definition of shirk comes from Allama Qurtubi rahmatullah alayhi himself in Al-Jami'u li Ahkam al-Quran. In the tafsir of the Quran, they give a detailed definition of the word shirk in their tafsir. And they passed away in the year 671 AH. Lived most of their life in Muslim Spain, one of the famous scholars of Cordoba. And he's not from the Mutaqaddimeen, nor is he from the Mutaakhirin, he's in the middle. Allama Qurtubi. And they said that all three forms are haram. So they said there are three stages, three forms of shirk, and all three of them are forbidden, haram. Number one, to consider a being other than Allah as God. And this is what they call shirk akbar, the major form of shirk. So to take a tree, an idol, a person even, a jinn, and to associate such a thing to Allah Almighty, or without associating it to Allah, to begin worshipping that thing itself, this is what we refer to as shirk akbar. And this shirk akbar, this type of shirk was committed by the mushrikeen Makkah. Mushrikeen Makkah. Remember, when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was born, there were around 360 idols in and around the Ka'bah Sharifa. Lat, Uzza, Manat, the three more commonly known ones. And they would either carve the idols out of stone or wood or some sort of earthly material and begin to worship them idols. Isi tariqe se mushrikeen of Makkah would believe that the angels were the daughters of Allah. Did you know this? This is what they would believe. Most of them accepted and believed in Allah Almighty, but what would they do? They would do sharik with Allah. They would associate partners with Allah. And this, as we just mentioned, is shirk akbar, the major form of shirk. Then we have number 2, Allama Qurtubi says, to consider that another being other than Allah can perform and create certain actions independently without Allah, even if that person does not believe that that person is a God. This is shirk as well. Key word here is independently. वैसे तो आजकल हर बंदा अपनी independence ही ढूंढा ना, but here the key word is independence. Those who are adversaries, they will claim and do itiraz upon you and me that we believe, this is their argument, that prophets and messengers, when they perform a miracle or when they perform some sort of supernatural event, or they do something or have control of some aspect of Allah Almighty's makhluk and creation, they think we believe that the prophets do this independently. But no, we'll come to this later. We do not claim this, nor do we believe this. Rather we say, Nabi, Rasul, Wali, Sahabi, whoever it may be, those who are closest to Allah, those who are furthest away from Allah, if they are doing something which is of the supernatural, yani mu'jiza, karama, or they are doing something in order to bring people towards the deen, then they are doing this either through the idhn of Allah Almighty, the permission of Allah, or the fadl of Allah Almighty. Idhn or fadl, permission or grace of Allah. We never say that a Nabi or Rasul does what he does off his own back, if you were to say it in our terms. Rather, Nabi and Rasul, Wali, whoever it may be, is muhtaj upon the qudrat of Allah Ta'ala. So ye galt fahmi hai. This is a misunderstanding, and this is often a propaganda against the Ahl Sunnati wal Jamal. Oh, these know, they believe that Nabis do something out of their own will and power. No. When Nabi does something, when Rasul does something, he does so through the idhan, the permission, and the fadl, the grace of Allah Ta'ala. Otherwise it's not possible. Not possible. Allah gives them that ikhtiyar, Allah gives them that choice. And there are examples in the Quran, and we will go through this. How? I don't know. Because time is, I don't know where it's going. But we'll go through these examples from the Quran, where sometimes even Allah gives this ikhtiyar to them. Like in the case where Ibrahim al-Islam slaughtered them 4 birds and put 4 different piles, and then he called out to them. Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah number 2, verse number 260. We'll come to all of that. But the general position and consensus is what? That Nabi, Rasul, Wali, Sahabi, if he performs something or does something, has some sort of firasat or some sort of discernment or insight, this is through the fadl or izn of Allah Ta'ala. So coming back to the point, we do not say that whatever act is done by Nabi or Rasul that this is independent from the qudra of Allah Almighty. No. Make this clear in your notes somewhere. Like I said, we'll come to this again. The example in your notes of this one is of Nimrud. Nimrud, who was the Badshah during the time of Sayyidina Khalilullah Ibrahim alayhi salam. Right? Surah Baqarah, Surah number 2, verse number 258. Nimrud, he had this arrogance and takabbur in him, and he thought he could give life and cause death. Huh? Surah number 258. ألم تر إلى الذين حاج إبراهيم أن أطاه الله الملك إذ قال إبراهيم ربي الذي يحيي ويميت. Ibrahim al-Islam is in the court of Nimrud and says that my Lord, my Rabb gives life and death. قال أنا أحيي وأميت. And Nimrud made this claim as well, that I can also give life and death. So him making that claim was independent from Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. This is an example from the Quran, what we mean in relation to the second type of shirk that Allama Qurtubi mentions. And how did he demonstrate this? The person who was sentenced for death, a prisoner and a free man, he called both of them in his court. The one who was a free man, he sentenced him to death and executed him. And the one who was due to be executed, freed him. And saying that this is me now, controlling life and death. And you're saying that your Lord has control of life and death. That's when Ibrahim al-Islam used their intelligence, their fitana, and they said, قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ Ibrahim al-Islam said, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْتِ بِالشَّمْسِ مِنَ الْمَشْرِقِ فَأْتِ بِهَا مِنَ الْمَغْرِبِ. That my Lord is He who causes the sun to rise from the east and to set in the west. Checkmate. Snook and Nimrud. That's something, you know. But Nimrud making this claim that I can give life and I can cause death. This independence which stems from who? Shaitan. Ana khayrun minhu. I am better than him. As soon as this I comes into you, khalas, khatam. That person is destroyed. Do we understand? So this is the second type of shirk. And then the third type of shirk, and this is something that we are all guilty of. And be cautious and wary of this. Is shirk fil ibadah. Is shirk in worship. And this is by way of riyakari, showing off. Ostentation. This is shirk because worship isn't done for the sake of Allah, and this type of shirk is known as shirk-e khafi, and ye bhi haram hai. And I'm a staunch advocate, and I often speak out against those people who, especially youngsters, are keen on making the dunya and their followers on social media aware of their acts of ibadat. Doing tawaf around the Kaaba, Snapchat, Facebook Live. Going and presenting salam in the Barbah of Rasul Akram sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Snapchat. Coming into the masjid, Snapchat. Caption, Thug Life. What's the caption? Rug Life, not Thug Life. Yani, giving charity sadaqah. Someone takes picture, put it on Facebook. Oh, they control these Sabahs given charity. Because of social media and because of these platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat and all these things, the beauty and essence of our ibadat, we are losing and we're not even realizing. You understand what I'm saying? Everyone seems to be a bit shell-shocked. He's caught us out, huh? Nobody's pointing finger at anyone. Big peers and big Maulvis are guilty of this as well. Standing with their back towards the Gumbad Khazra Sharif and taking pictures and then putting up captions on their Facebook. Fans have come to see Pisa from all around the world. Asal Peer kaun the? Like Huzur, Muhaddis Alipur, Rahmatullahi Ta'ala alayh. They would go to Umrah every year and they would take with them hundreds of murideen on one occasion, one of the murids stepped on the foot of a dog of Madinatul Munawwara. And they used to wear a huge Imam Sharif. And they took off the amama and they began to bandage the foot of the dog. And they got onto their knees and they put their hands together and said, "O dog of Medina, if you do not forgive me, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will not forgive me." They were asal awliya, not what we have today. But this shirki khafi, riya and showing off, this is something which we are all guilty of. वो रिवायत है ना सही मुस्लिम शरीफ बना वो हदीस कुदसी भी है ना. I was reading yesterday hadith Qudsi as well. 3 types of people will come on the day of judgment: Shaheed, Qari Quran, or Baal Riwayat mein Alim Deen, or that Sakhi and Ghani person who used to give a lot of money in the way of Allah. One by one Allah will question them. Kadhabta, you have lied. What did you do for my sake? Ya Allah, I gave my life for your sake. I gave my life for your sake. Allah will say, Kadhabta, you have lied. You didn't do it for my sake. You fought on the battlefield, so people will call you a ghazi. People will say you are brave and courageous. You didn't do it for my sake. You did it for the sake of the people. Those people who you did it for, go to them and take your good deeds from them. And who you did it for, take your deeds from them. Take your reward from them. That's what I meant to say. Take your rewards from them. Then Allah Almighty will say to the angels, drag this person on his face and throw him into the fires of Jahannam. Shaheed. Same with Qari Quran. What did you do for my sake? Ya Allah, I recited the Quran for your sake. Ali Medina, I used to teach classes for your sake. Allah will say, Kadabta, you have lied. You didn't do it for my sake. You did it so people will kiss your hands. You did it so people will call you Shaykh al-Islam. You did it so people will say that this person is such and such. You did it for shuhrat and fame. And then Allah Almighty will say to the Malaika, drag this Qari Quran, Ali Medina on his face, throw him into the fires of Jahannam. What's left? If there is no khulus and there is no lillahiyat in our ibadat, there is no sincerity in our acts of worship, then Allah Almighty will throw these acts of worship on our face to the day of Qiyamah, and these will be the means of entering into the fires of Jahannam. Ye jo hai na shirki khafi. And then the third type of person, I'll finish the riwayat, is that person who used to give a lot of money in the way of Allah. आजकल ये एक समझो एक रिस्म है ना, आदत, जुमे पर पूरे 5-10 मिनट ऐलानात, राजा साहब gave such and such, चौधरी साहब gave 10 pounds, राजा साहब gave 20. Who are you trying to tell? Who are you doing it for? Allahu Akbar. Allah Almighty will say to that rich person, what did you do for my sake? Ya Allah, I built massages for your sake. Ya Allah, I gave money and charity in the way of Allah. I put my hand on the head of a yatim, of a miskin. Allah Almighty will say, Kadhabta, you have lied. You didn't do it for my sake. You did it. So people will say, MashaAllah, dekho, such and such has given such and such money. And Allah Almighty will tell the angels, drag him on his face, throw him into the fire. What's left? What's left? This is why before we do something, we should always have ikhlas. It's better to do something small in terms of deed and action, but in that small deed and action there is ikhlas. There is lillahiyyah. Rather than to do big things, it's better to read 2 nafal at night with khulus and lillahiyyah than to read 1,000 nawafil without any ikhlas or sincerity. Do we understand? And this is what Allama Qurtubi is alluding to here. So in light of what Allama Qurtubi has said, these are the types of shirk. All 3 of them are haram. So this is shirk. But what we have is the definition of shirk in light of the Wahhabiyya, Najdiyya. Their interpretation of shirk is something different. In your notes at the bottom of page 10, how they interpreted shirk in light of what Nasiruddin Albani has mentioned and written, is there. I'm not going to go through all of that. In a nutshell, on page 10 and page 11, all of the discussion is there. Bottom of page 11 in your notes, in a nutshell, the followers of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab al-Najdi, they consider the following to be shirk. So they brand you and me as mushriks. Always remember this. People say, why don't you read namaz behind them? Arey, how are we going to read namaz behind them when they consider you and me to be mushriks? Sochne ki gaal hai na? They have labeled you and me, considered us to be mushriks. Based upon what? Based upon the following. Number 1, calling upon anyone other than Allah like saying Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or Ya Khawf Madad, or Ya Ali Madad, and doing istighatha, seeking help from somebody other than Allah, Ghairullah, they consider this to be shirk. One by this full 2-hour lecture, one by one, I would have gone just through the verses of the Quran and would have counted all of their argument. Waqat Torah, but I'm going to do it anyway in the next slide. They also consider shirk, or consider that person a mushrik who seeks the wasila of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, seeks the medium and does tawassul through the that of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Even though Allah says in the Quran what? And here just quickly write Surah number 4, verse number 64. وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ إِذْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ جَاءُوكَ فَاسْتَغْفَرُوا اللَّهَ وَاسْتَغْفَرَ لَهُمُ الرَّسُولُ لَوَجَدُوا اللَّهَ تَوَّابًا رَحِيمًا. Surah number 4, verse 64. Waqt doesn't permit to go into all of the discussion. Yes. But this is another argument that they have. Anyone who does wasila, this is why when we go as ashiks towards Madinatul Munawwara to see the Prophet alayhi salam, and we raise our hands in the direction of the Rawdatul Sharifa, what do they often say? Hada shirk. Hada shirk. This is shirk. Qibla, or whatever they say. Whereas I never get into these type of things. But hada shirk. Donald Trump coming to your country and you dancing for him and putting a gold medal around his neck. That's not shirk. You shaking the hand of Melina, the wife of Donald Trump. I was just going to say the husband of Donald Trump. But you touching the hand of Melina, that's not shirk. But Ashik going and making dua in the presence of the Rawdatul Sharif, that's shirk. Double standards. And many other things like this can be mentioned as well, but time doesn't permit. To sit, and they say that person who seems to suggest that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has ilmul ghaib, knowledge of the unseen, that person is mushrik. Ma'adallah, the scholars have said and written that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam didn't have knowledge of what was behind the wall. And those who evolved after them. And that Malakul Maut and Shaitan, Ma'adallah, they, ilmul ghaib and knowledge of the unseen can be established through the verses of the Quran. But Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Ma'adallah, his ilmul ghaib cannot be established through the verses of the Quran. Even though Allah Ta'ala says in Surah An-Nisa, Surah number 4, verse number 113, وَعَلَّمَكَ مَا لَمْ تَكُنْ تَعْلَمْ وَكَانَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكَ عَظِيمًا. That He taught you that which you did not know. Who taught who? Ar-Rahman, Allama al-Quran. Allah taught Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that which he did not know. And how was this teaching? What was the cause of this teaching? وَكَانَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ. Allah taught Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that which he did not know through his fadl, through his grace, عَلَيْكَ عَظِيمًا, which was upon Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But time doesn't permit. Pura dastan. And they said the one who, and this is what they've done recently, the house, or the remains of the house of Sayyidah Tayyiba Tahira Halima Sa'diyya radiyallahu ta'ala, the Banu Sa'ad near Taif. I don't know if you saw a couple of weeks, which day after or the week before, a newspaper report and video clip went viral on social media of these khubasa and these akhbas people who bulldozed the remains of the house of Sayyidah Halima Sa'diyya radiyallahu ta'ala anha. Why? Because people were going there and praying and taking tabarruk and blessings from that place where Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam spent his bachpan and his time. You'll see when you go, and if you've been to Umrah and Hajj, you would have no doubt seen huge boards with the interpretation of certain ahadith, deterring people from climbing Jabal Nur and going to the Ghar of Hira, and climbing Jabal Thawr and going to Ghar Thawr. And obviously when they took over, Ibn Saud and his family, who were responsible for the Wahhabiyya coming into power in Saudi Arabia, these are historical facts. This is not something which is hidden. And I often tell people to read the book Confessions of a British Spy, written by Major Humphreys, the ex-major of the British Army when the British were in charge of India. when they ruled India, and this book you can download for free on PDF. Yes, but Confessions of a British Spy. And everything, inka pura dastan, Humphreys ke itarazat, something like this in Urdu as well is available. Inka pura dastan or tarikh or history you will read. And if you look at the old pictures, you see huge gumbads and domes and mizarat upon the graves of Sayyidah Fatima to Zahra radiyallahu ta'ala anha, Sayyidina Uthman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, in Jannatul Ma'la in Makkah al-Mukarramah, upon the grave of Sayyidah Khadija al-Kubra. And when they came into, they bulldozed everything. They destroyed everything. And today they stop you from going to Jannatul Baqi and making dua. This is the level and extent that they will go to, in order to stop people from doing what they perceive as shirk. What they perceive as shirk. Not knowing that everything that we do and everything that we believe in is in light of Quran and Sunnah and Aqidah Sahaba Karam and A'immah Shariah and other things as well like this as well. They consider those who visit shrines of the pious servants of Allah, so much so that they consider the one who visits Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as not necessary. Ibn Taymiyyah has a full bahas upon this, full risala upon this. But just very quickly, and mera itha time ho gaya, just very quickly, these individuals, just a couple of itrazat or jawabat to the itrazat. Write these references down, they're not in your notes. Aap bhi kuch kaam karo. Write these references down. Waqt ko nahi to go through all of the verses and answer the itrazat one by one. But we believe that if the prophets and friends of Allah perform an act, mu'jiza, karama, or they have knowledge of the unseen, ilmul ghaib, or that we seek wasila and tawassul through them, then this is through the idhan, the permission and the grace of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, like I was mentioning earlier. So when we go to the mazar of somebody other than Allah, ghair Allah, the mazar of Huzur Tata Ali Ujwairi, the mazar of Huzur Khwaja Khan in Ajmer, the mazar of Huzur Ghaus Pak in Baghdad, when we go and make dua there, or we do mannat there, we don't make dua to them directly, rather through them we go to Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. And so many aqli mithal can be given for this. Like for example, if you need to see a doctor, who do you go through? Receptionist. If you need to see your local MP, you go through procedures. Certain avenues you have to, you can't just turn up at number 10 Downey Street at Masi May's house and say, "Ji, main aa gaya ji, milne wasta." Or Buckingham Palace, Beji Elizabeth, and you said to Oji, "I've come to see you." Try it. We won't see you again. Not possible. Yani there are procedures in this dunya that you have to adopt. Go through channels, avenues. In the same way, the bila tashbih wa tamthil, this is for our own aql. Similar avenues exist when we say that we are going to Allah Tabarak. You can't go direct to Allah. This is the biggest lie that people propagate. Only go direct to Allah. Go direct to Allah. It's not a PIA flight. Go direct to Allah. Allah didn't communicate to you and me directly. Rather, He went through the system of Nabuwwat and Risalat, and He sent the books, the scriptures, the kutub and the suhuf. So the one who is communicating with you and me through some sort of medium and avenue, you expect to communicate with Him by bypassing the mediums and avenues? Aql doesn't dictate this, doesn't allow us to accept and comprehend this. But ये तो बहुत लंबा एक दास्तान है ना. Very quickly, just बतौर इशारा. Adhan, Isha Adhan 7:50. That's good for me. I can then know that I need to stop. Bataur ishara, I missed a number at the end. It's not verse number 4. Let me correct that. It's not in verse number 4. The verse is here. Surah Ali Imran. Surah number 3. Verse 49. The 9 is missing here. Verse 49. Again, time doesn't permit to go into the verse itself. But here Allah Almighty talks about أَنِّي قَدْ جِئْتُكُمْ بِآيَاتٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ, that Allah Almighty sent a Rasul, وَرَسُولًا إِلَىٰ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيل, to the Bani Israel, and he came to them with signs from his Lord. أَنِّي أَخْلُقُ لَكُم مِّنَ الطِّينِ كَهَيْئَةِ الطَّيْرِ فَأَنفُخُ فِيهِ فَيَكُونُ طَيْرًا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. Isa a.s. would mold and fashion the shape of birds out of clay, and then he would blow into them. فَأَنفُخُ فِيهِ, he would blow into them. فَيَكُونُ طَيْرًا, and they would come alive. These birds would come alive. How? Through the idhn and the permission of Allah Tabarak. Isa a.s. giving life to inanimate object. وَأُبْرِئُ الْأَكْمَهَ وَالْأَبْرَصَ وَأُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. And then he would cure the leper from their leprosy, and would cure the illnesses, the blind from their blindness, and would cure the illnesses of the people. How? بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ, through the permission of Allah. وَأُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِمَا تَأْكُلُونَ وَمَا تَدَّخِرُونَ فِي بُيُوتِكُمْ. And number three, Isa a.s. would have knowledge of what those people would have stored. يَتَأْكُلُونَ كَالْمُضَارِعِ, حال ومستقبل, two tenses in one here. And تَدَّخِرُونَ, what they had eaten, what they were eating, and what they were going to eat, and what they had stored in their homes, and what they were going to store in their homes in the future. Isa a.s. had this knowledge of the unseen. They're going to, you just come from Manchester, I don't know what you've eaten, what you're going to eat in the future. I can check your Snapchat later and probably be Mahmood's. But I don't know, here looking at you now, nobody knows. But who had this knowledge? Isa a.s. Who gave him this knowledge? Allah Almighty Jalla wa'ala. So this is one example from the Quran. Isa a.s. having these special attributes and qualities that Allah Almighty Jalla wa'ala bestowed upon him. Yusuf alayhi salam. Yusuf alayhi salam. वो पूरा एक दास्तान है ना, वाक़या of Isa Yusuf alayhi salam. And many lessons can be learned from the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. His father Yaqub alayhi salam, one of 12 sons, and we know that his other brothers had jealousy towards him, threw him in the well and faked his death and so on and so forth. And then he went into slavery, and then Zulaykha tried to entice him. And इस तरीके से the women of Misr, they would do tana upon Zulaykha that how could you have fallen in love with a ghulam? And then what happened? Zulaykha said that I'll show you why I fell in love with him. And Yusuf a.s. used to have a parda on his face. Such was the beauty that he had. Nisful Jamal, the half of beauty was given to him. But a long story. Then he went into prison, and eventually he was released from prison. Afterwards, his brothers came to him. His brothers didn't recognize him. He recognized his brothers, and he became aware of the fact that his father Yaqub alayhi salam, who was the son of Ishaq alayhi salam, who was the son of Ibrahim alayhi salam, ye char pushpo anbiya, all four of them prophets, Ibrahim, Ishaq, Yaqub and Yusuf alayhi salam. He became aware of the fact that his father's state had deteriorated such that he had lost the eyesight. He had lost his eyesight, or the sight in his eye. So what did he say? اذهبوا بقميصي هذا فألقوه على وجه أبي يأتي بصيرا. And I mentioned this at the Muharram talk as well, a couple of months back as well. This is with reference now. Yusuf al-Islam gives his shirt, his kameez, which is a common denominator throughout the qissa of Yusuf, his shirt. And he says to his brothers that tell my father to place my shirt upon his eyes, and when he places my shirt upon his eyes, Allah Almighty will restore his eyesight. He could have made dua. Nabi the na. Nabi dua never rejected, unless Allah Almighty wishes to reject it. Nabi's dua never rejected. But this is a sabak, taking tabarrukat and blessings from those things which have a nisbat and connection to the anbiya. This is sunnate anbiya. Bara. Number three, Sulaiman alayhi salam controls the winds. Hukumat of Sulaiman alayhi salam, Badshah the na. And he was given this salsanat and hukumat to control the winds and communicate with the animals and the jinn. अरे सुलेमान अलैहिस्सलाम का मकाम तो बहुत बड़ा है ना. Just look at the wazir of Sulaiman अलैहिस्सलाम, Asif bin Barkhiyya, how he bought the takht of Bilqis within the blink of an eye. ये भी कुरान में है ना. These people who have these discussions, I don't know what they are basing their discussions on which Quran they are reading. The Quran that you and me read clearly gives us indication and evidence and proof and clear isharat towards our aqidah and beliefs. And none of this is shirk. Sabit karo that ye shirk hai. Jibreel alayhi salam comes to Sayyidah Maryam and gives Maryam the news that I will grant you a son. Arey Jibreel alayhi salam is Ghairullah. यह है सूरह मरियम में, सूरह नंबर 19, verse number 19. قال إني أنا ربك لأهب لك غلاما زكيا. لأهب, तर्जमा करो لأهب का, I will grant you a son. Ghairullah is given a son to Maryam, Jibreel alayhi salam. But here Mufassirin mention that under this particular verse, you have the understanding that لِأَهَبَ لَكِي غُلَامًا زَكِيًّا. What is mahzuf here? Tafsir Jalalain. What is mahzuf here? لِأَهَبَ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ لَكِي غُلَامًا زَكِيًّا. Now when Jibreel said to Maryam, who was 13 at that point, when she was blessed with Isa alayhi salam, she was 13 years old. When he gave her the news that I'm going to grant you a son, he didn't say through my own qudrat and power. No, bi-idhnillah, through the permission of Allah. Like this, we have the example, as I was mentioning earlier, of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, verse number 260, where Ibrahim alayhi salam asks Allah, وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّي أَرِنِي كَيْفَ تُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى. Ya Allah, how do you give life to the dead? قَالَ أَوَلَمْ تُؤْمِنْ. Allah says to Ibrahim, do you not believe me? قَالَ بَلَا, I believe you. وَلَكِنْ لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي. But I want this اطمئنان القلب. एक है ilm al-yaqeen, एक है haqq al-yaqeen, एक है ayn al-yaqeen. Ibrahim alayhi salam wanted to see himself. قَالَ فَخُذْ أَرْبَعَةً مِنَ الطَّيْرِ فَصُرْهُنَّ إِلَيْكَ ثُمَّ اجْعَلْ على كل جبل منهن جزءا ثم ادعوهن يأتينك سعيا. Allah Almighty said to Ibrahim alayhi salam, take 4 birds, nurture them, train them, earn their trust, then slaughter them, mix their meat, put them on 4 different mountains, come to the bottom of the mountain, then Ibrahim, you call out to them. Allah didn't say, I will call out. Allah gave this power to Ibrahim, and Allah can give this power to whomsoever He wills. Allah gave this power to Ibrahim alayhi salam to call out to them birds, and by the call, ثُمَّ ادْعُهُنَّ يَأْتِينَكَ سَعْيًا, by the call of Ibrahim alayhi salam, these dead birds came back to life and came back to Ibrahim alayhi salam. Anbiya given this qudratan, this power by Allah Almighty. आजकल लोग झगड़े करने इन चीज़ों पर. इसी तरीके से the Jews made dua through Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Before Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam came into this dunya, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the Adhar was used in order to make dua by the Jews. And they would make this dua, and ultimately the Jews were granted victory. They were granted victory by Allah Almighty because of this dua they would make through Sayyiduna Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. To conclude, इसी तरीके से there are other verses as well. Surah number 2, verse number 125. وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلًّى. Station of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Patthar hai, stone, but that stone has a nisbat to the qadamain of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Such a nisbat that Allah says, take this place as a place of worship. Take the station of Ibrahim alayhi salam as a station, a place of worship. Then we have Zakaria alayhi salam's example in the Quran. He wanted a son. His wife and himself, they reached a barren old age, and they wanted to make هُنَالِكَ دَعَا زَكَرِيَّا رَبَّهُ. And Allah Almighty said, make dua, but go to the place where Sayyidah Maryam is doing ibadat in Masjid al-Aqsa. Hazrat has been, he will tell you that maqam today is still there. And Zakaria alayhi salam, Nabi, who is of a'la maqam, is going to the maqam of somebody who is of adna maqam. Someone of greater maqam going to somebody of a lesser maqam. But making dua that, oh Allah, grant me a son. And Allah Almighty gave him the son. The son was who? Yahya alayhi salam. So he's making dua to awliya, making dua to mazarat of the awliya, and the anbiya was wrong, then why would Allah Almighty mention all these things in the Quran? We consider them to be wrong because we don't sit and study and learn these things. And people pollute our minds and contaminate our hearts and misguide us. And this is in Surah number 3, verse number 37. And it goes on and on. But I'm going to conclude with the riwayat from Bukhari Sharif, and then we'll have the adhan for Salatul Isha. And the riwayat is mentioned in your notes as well. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, top of page 12, that such misguided beliefs and practices have deviated from the mainstream orthodox doctrines of the Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Yani what the Wahhabiyya and Najdiyya Hukumat and the theology of the Wahhabiyya and Najdiyya claim have nothing to do with the Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And you will not find anything that what they practice and believe in the first 1100 years of Islam. Rather, our Islam is taken from what Nabi Islam said. This hadith is hadith number 1344. And I have Bukhari Sharif with me. Nabi Islam himself said, Wallahi ma akhafu alaykum an tushriku ba'di. That by Allah, I am not afraid that you will worship anything other than Allah after me. Nabi Islam is saying this. Imam Bukhari is doing record of this. That Nabi Islam said, I am not worried that you will worship anything other than Allah after me. Rather, Nabi Islam said, وَلَكِنْ أَخَافَ عَلَيْكُمْ أَن تَنَافَسُوا فِيهَا. What I fear is that after my parda from this dunya, what I'm afraid of is that you will fight with one another. You will compete with one another in worldly things. And that's what we find today. The ummah is being made zaleel because of such things. Interestingly, those who issue rulings of shirk on sincere believers have themselves been seen celebrating the birthday of their kings, the birthdays of their kings, and acknowledging their achievements whilst lavishing praise on non-tyrant Muslim leaders and rulers in excessive ways. But they're very quick to say that what you're doing is bid'ah, and what you're doing is shirk, hada bid'ah. These things you should not get confused of. If Nabi Islam himself has said to you and me that I don't fear my ummatis will do shirk, then who is 14th century Maulvi to say that what you are doing is wrong and shirk? Our aqidah is from the Quran, our aqidah is from the ahadith al-mubarak of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It's a real shame that ad sir qaza hui hai, adani hui. Qaza of previous discussion. If you put previous discussion with today's discussion, that's 4 hours. Today we have this, somebody wrote on social media, on my brother's post, I think he was asking whether to speak on social illnesses. And somebody wrote, none of you Sunni Brailwi speak about Tawhid. So now Hassan Bhai has got the duty of putting all of this together and 4 hours on YouTube, and we'll send our brother the link as well, inshallah. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ.